To Blender Studio Live. In this episode, I want to show you the basic example of how you can set up caustics with cycles. So currently I'm using Blender 3.2 Alpha, and now we have the options for caustics. It's still just the shadow caustics, so and only caustics that's happening under the shadows. And you basically set it up on the light itself, light object, shadow caustic stick, and then for the objects, your objects needs to be like some kind of glass. So we don't have, I don't think we have reflective caustics yet, but if you select the objects and enable cast shadow caustics and receive shadow caustics, and you should see caustic, but you need to play a little bit of detective works, and also maybe my light is not strong enough, so I need to increase it like 10,000 or something, and then I need to adjust the filmic, and then just try to get the hotspot caustic, just like what you see here in the I think there could be like a render or like a real caustics. Some renderer can have like easy dispersions in the caustics. That's also really cool. Usually you see this in a swimming pool, or if you look at sunlight that's passing through the glass, sometimes you can see caustics, glass or bottle. So this is good for simple basic examples like a still life 3D render. My setup is using geometry nodes, and I can show you the whole setup. It's really simple. This is just the donut with subdivision surface, and the positions. I'm using this Musgrave texture, so it's giving like a water kind of surface. I could use instead of using the donut, I can just use like a box, the original mesh default cube, been subdivided multiple times, 6 times, and then I adjust the scale so we have like a water surface, and this is just a simple area light. And we should, whenever there's like a hot spot, we should be able to see caustics. So it's something you need to play around with. I don't know, maybe smaller light like this, like will cause caustic. Like if you get a hot spot there, the caustic should be happening somewhere there. Maybe maybe the caustic is there, I don't see it. Or anyhow, let's set this up from scratch, because it's like a basic, kind of like a basic tutorial, but also something that's useful for beginners. You have camera, active camera here, you have light. Let's create a floor plane, bring these objects up. Okay, let's save this very quickly. Still life. Gonna give material for the floor, maybe less, instead of using white, maybe a little bit darker for the floor. And then we're gonna assign a material for this guy and give it a glass material instead of principle. Just use glass. For simple still life, 3D still life, where you want to have like caustics, maybe, yeah, this should be a good start. You have this light that's there by default. This is for ambient light. You can just delete it. Shift A, create new light. Let's use area light. So with area light, you can see these dots. You can actually use these dots just to point at the object. The shortcut is there, Shift T. Sometimes you also want to control, if you hold control and then move this thing around, you can see this thing can point into the objects. Yeah, it could be handy, but anyway, you place it in a position and then Shift T and then just point into the object. And you enable cycles because you want to have caustics. And then, yeah, let's take a look at the render for now. Okay, we have like a glass. Okay, we have this area light. Let's see, if you want to have a bit more control, you can also enable rectangle or like a different shapes, so you can have like longer area light like that. So default cube probably will not give you like a visible caustics much, so we switch to geometry nodes and enable subdivision surface, divide it 6 times, it's become rounded objects. Okay, let's increase the power 10,000 or like 1,000 watt. I have a feeling that this is caustic. It's already happening. I don't know why, but I might be wrong. It might not be a caustics. So with this area light selected, enable Shadow Caustics, and also with this object selected, just enable under shading, enable cast shadow and receive shadow caustics. We might see more like a hotspot to represent the caustic. By default, it's gonna be really noisy because this is just the way Cycles render. You just need to wait like a few seconds until it settles. Normally, you can adjust this noise threshold, make it smaller and smaller, or just turn it off, so it will keep on rendering. So it will create like this light refocusing after the bounce, after the ray trace, and it's gonna try to blur itself if you, and then yeah, you can also enable denoising on the viewport, or you just do the actual render with the, you adjust the sample here 100 or 300, or this is like quite high. Just enable denoising, and I actually turn off the noise threshold, so it's like 0, and then the sample, max sample is 1024. It's gonna keep on rendering. It's gonna blur the caustics and then keep shooting the ray trace again and blur it again. Maybe you will have like a hotspot. Okay, so that's really the basic idea. If you want to have something that's a little bit more interesting, set the position. We're gonna disturb this kind of like using displace modifier, and I'll be using Musgrave texture. And if you just plug this in, it's gonna look like that. We're gonna use the normal. We're gonna multiply this height with the normal. Multiply. Okay, so it's looking a little bit nicer now. You probably want to set smooth, and then you want to have like set material. We're gonna assign the glass material, so name this glass material. This is the floor materials. So this is like all the basic steps that you want to do. You can play around with the Musgrave, and also you probably want to set up the offset and also the multiplier. This is a scale multiplier. You can also use offset somewhere here, but don't worry for now. So we have Musgrave. We can control the Musgrave scaling. We can switch this to 4D so we can animate this W, so an extra value to control the animations. So hopefully by doing that, we could have caustics that's more visible. Okay, so because it's like water, sometimes you're starting to see, okay, there's like that's looking like caustic, but after you wait a few seconds, it's gonna get blur and disappear. So I wonder if that's actually the caustic itself that's not strong enough. So maybe I have to make this like 10,000. It's gonna be really, really bright. However, you can always adjust filmic and adjust the exposure here. So like I said, sometimes with the caustics, because the effect is so subtle, you need to play like a detective. I don't know, but this is really good study for 3D still life. Okay, so this is the geometry node setup for the mass grave, because it's looking like a water. And then the shader editor, this guy. Okay, select the objects, glass material. Okay, we have the glass material. You can play around with this. Sharp Beckman by default is set to Beckman, and if I use different color, we have this it's the light bounce. It's like a GI, global illuminations, or that's just like the effects of refractions. I don't know, there's a bit of red there, but I believe the caustic is not there. It seems like there, just a little bit of like red happening. It's like refocusing of light, but I'm not 100% sure. If you play with the roughness, you're gonna get something that's a little bit more like ice. So it's a little bit like it's a little bit nerdy when you want to see caustics, but it's fun thing to do if you're new with 3D, or even like if you've been using 3D for a long time, you still like to see caustics happening. Maybe smaller source of light will give you the caustics. It's very, very subtle. Sometimes I'm not 100% sure if the caustic is working. Shadow caustic is on, and also again under this object properties, cast shadow caustics and receive shadow caustics. So there should be caustic somewhere here, unless I'm missing an options, or because this is like Blender 3.2 alpha. And with Mac, if you turn on GPU, I don't think the caustic will work. So I'm using CPU, denoising turn on, so it's gonna blur the noise over time. But you might need to wait a few seconds until the caustics appear. But it's really I don't know, it's still like a trial and error. Let's see if we increase the noise. Maybe not too much. Scale it. Maybe we probably need to have two different light. I don't know. I'm just gonna duplicate it. Shift T and point. By default, I believe we also have this light. Ambient light, environment light. I will turn it off. You might start to see some very subtle caustics happening. And then it's happening. You can see there's something there, and then it's over time it's gonna disappear again and again. Maybe we need to have two light. One is giving caustic, one doesn't. Maybe one shouldn't cast shadow. By the way, with the light itself, with the light objects, you can turn on this visibility, raise visibility, turn on the camera, because real light will show up as something that's bright. So sometimes you want this to be on. So yeah, I believe this is caustics, but it's not as clear. So far I've been using just area light. Maybe I can use like a spotlight. Shift T. So I'll put it there. Shift T and point it into the objects. And then turn on Shadow Caustics. Still, you know, not as visible. Gonna increase this to 5000. And for the area light, reduce the energy to 5000. I'm still not 100% sure if the caustic is there. Okay, let's do this. We want to have this control over the W and the scale, and also this multiplier. So I will pass this W into group input in the scale, and then this multiplier. So we have 3 different parameters that's coming out to control our objects. I will name this multiplier. So if I duplicate this now and then go under geometry nodes parameters, I can adjust the W, the scale of the noise, and the multiplier. So we can have 3 different objects that's looking like water with the W slightly different. So one of these should cast like a caustics. Sometimes I believe there's the caustics is there. It's just it's really subtle and blurry. Only if we like, instead of if we turn off the noising and we just wait and look at the noisy rays here, you can kind of think there's a caustics there, there's caustics here. Whenever the light is refocusing, I don't know if they are animating, maybe we can actually spot the caustics. If I turn on the noising, it's gonna get blurred very quickly, and that's usually how the caustic is like. It's very subtle. Only in the like really strong with the strong light. That's why people just tend to fake the caustics. I don't know, maybe I should try with something like a glass, or maybe there's one option that I'm missing. The caustics itself might need an object that has a volume. So I haven't actually deal with that. I mean, we need to have some kind of principal volume that's plugged into this guy. Maybe that's the thing that I haven't done. Maybe with volume, okay, we will see like a more visible caustics. Something I should try. Volume info, principal volume. Yeah, I think it's correct. Or volume scatter. However, like I said, setting up the caustics is a good study for beginners, just to try yourself to set up the light, set up the camera. Okay, I haven't set up the camera. We have a camera here. If you like this angle, view, cameras, just align the active camera to view. So now we have a camera, and you can actually render this out. This is the options for the viewport render, and this is the option for the actual renders. By default is set to 4096 samples. You want to reduce this to maybe 300 or 500, and then you just hit render, and it's gonna render. So I don't know if this is like a caustic, really blurry caustics, but that's basically how you set up caustics. If there's like a missing steps, at least I recorded this, and we can improve that in the future. Okay, so all right, so maybe I should turn this shade smooth. Oh, I just leave it on. You can, of course, instead of using geometry nodes, you could have used like a subdivision surface modifier and also displace modifier with noise. It's the same thing. I just like to do it using nodes. So this is as basic as you can set up something like this, like a water surface using Musgrave texture. If you want to have the donuts, you can do this circle and curve to mesh. Plug this into this guy, or like that. It's gonna have ring. Maybe with ring you're gonna have something that's more like a caustic. Be careful with subdivision surface here. It might be a little bit strong with the subdivisions. We have two light in the floor. And hopefully we have caustics. I don't know. Yeah. You just have to wait like a few seconds. So, alright, in the meantime, hopefully this is useful. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.